We cannot confirm that rape occurred on October 7th. We cannot confirm those accounts. I think that's pretty damaging. I think that's pretty damaging.
What then was the play, and to what extent was it successful that Israel and its media trumpeted these claims so?
Well, they resonate here. You know, it's the subconscious, the unconscious. It's the rape by dark-skinned people that has a very huge, has a deep history and a huge resonance in the United States. I mean, parts of it were just frankly ugly. They really, can I use the word, irked me? So let me give you one example. The head of the UN Commission of Inquiry, her name is Navi Pillay, Pillay. She's from South Africa. She's of Indian descent, if I'm not mistaken. And she has a good record. She was the UN Human Rights Chief. She's serious, no question in my mind about it. So she says, as we already stated, we cannot confirm the accounts of rape on October 7th. But then she starts accusing Hamas of not rape, but sexual violence. Okay, or the report accuses Hamas of sexual violence. Okay, I'm ready to listen. So what kinds of evidence do they put forth? They said that when the women were taken hostage by Hamas, they were forced to sit between two men on a motor scooter. A lot of the Hamas militants entered on a motor scooter. They were forced to sit between two men on a motor scooter. And the report, the UN Commission of Inquiry, the report calls that coerced intimacy, sexual violence, coerced intimacy. Well, first of all, okay, taking a person hostage, it's a war crime. I'm not going to quarrel with that. That's what the law says. But does the law say that if you take a woman hostage, you have to order her an Uber? It's just stupid. And then there is that racist undercurrent, like she has to sit between two Arabs. She has to, so disgusting. I don't even think, if it were two white people, I don't even think it would occur to anyone to speak about sexual, coerced intimacy. I mean, for Christ's sake, every time a white woman goes into a subway car at rush hour and she has to stand between two black men, okay? Should we then sue the MTA for coerced intimacy? Okay, so someone says, it's not the same thing because she's not forced to. Well, guess what? She is forced to. She has to get home. So why shouldn't we separate the cars between blacks and whites so that white women don't have to suffer the ordeal of coerced intimacy with black men? It's completely crazy. It was people who, they're so afraid of the Israelis. They're so afraid of the Israelis and all their supporters that they conjure these things like coerced intimacy as sexual violence because they couldn't say rape happened. There was no evidence. But they have to vindicate Israel some way. Some way. You can't give, Israel has been blasting away at this rape charge. So you can't call them complete liars. You're too afraid. So you conjure these instances of sexual violence, not rape, sexual violence, in order to vindicate, at least in part, Israel. Because you can't say it's all lies. They're too afraid. It's cowardice. Navi Pillay is not a bad person. I know that. I recognize that. And I had a question in my mind, which I will freely admit. I was going to put on the front cover as on wanted posters, Pramila Patten, Julia Sebutinde, Fatou Bensouda, and Joan Donahue. And I was debating whether or not I would put Navi Pillay, because I respect her. Here, I think it's not careerism as it was with Joan Donahue. I don't believe it's bribery or blackmail as it was with Fatou Bensouda and Julia Sebutinde. I think it's just cowardice, fear. Sheryl Sandberg, it's the cause. You think you're doing, I'm Chai Israel. Israel lives. It's our cause. She's doing something for the Jewish people. She imagines in her mind, and she's being very heroic and courageous. Like you pay a big price in the United States for going out on the limb and defending Israel. It's all completely laughable. But Pillay, I think it was just fear that she would be tarred and feathered professionally if she said everything Israel was saying was a lie. So they come up with these utterly preposterous categories like coerced intimacy. That's how I see it, but I can't, those are speculations. I can't prove it. Look, the irony is, this is the way politics is. Obviously, Hamas did horrible things on October 7th. You didn't need a rape charge. You really didn't. But they get carried away, and especially because all they care about is the Americans, and they knew that charge of dark-skinned people committing rape will strike a chord in the United States. So they ran with it, but ultimately, what did they do? They ultimately discredit themselves. Because when that charge proves to be false, what do you think people are going to think? That everything Israel said about October 7th was false, which is not true. I get a lot of email, a lot of correspondence, people saying to me, well, that a lot of the folks were killed in firefights, and Israel, killed a lot of them, and there's this evidence and that evidence. I said, well, look, I wasn't there, but I've gone through the record carefully. And 850 civilians were killed on October 7th. And I do not believe there's plausible evidence that a significant number were killed by Israel in crossfire. I do not. So I'm not going there. I'm not going down that route. I'll go down the route if you show me the evidence, but I've not seen the evidence of that. And even Hamas, if you listen to them closely, they gave contradictory accounts of what happened. Sometimes they said, well, all the people at the Nova Film Festival, they served in the army, and everybody serves in the army. It's a citizen army, and therefore they're all settlers, and therefore they're legitimate targets. And then they said, in another account, they said, well, it wasn't the Hamas fighters who committed the atrocities, but the riffraff from Gaza who entered afterwards, because it proved to be so easy to break through the fence. And it's true, a lot of Gazans who had nothing to do with the attacks entered Israel. But they never, as I said, they weren't entirely denying that it happened. They weren't saying, well, Israel killed all the 850 civilians. They were either saying those were legitimate targets or it wasn't Hamas. So I didn't find plausible at all that those killings occurred by Gazans, and almost certainly by Hamas, you know. But on this particular rape thing, it's not true. You know, it's not true, and it was used to abet a genocide. It was used, and Sheryl Sandberg stands guilty of that. She had to know what she was saying. Not necessarily that it was not true, but she certainly had to know that by normal evidentiary standards, you don't go out and make a 40-minute documentary based on teary-eyed, quote-unquote, witnesses. No, that's not a documentary. That's not serious. If you had done that at Harvard in your freshman thesis, I don't know if Harvard, I know Princeton, I don't know Harvard, but freshman, if you submit that as a freshman thesis, it wouldn't pass. You know, you would meet with your advisor, and your advisor would say, well, can you give us more evidence? Can you give us more evidence? These are pretty sensational claims. Can you give, you know, so she knew what she was doing. But they don't care. You see, that's the thing. You have to understand the mindset. I understand the mindset because I went through it. There is the little facts and the big cause. So, yes, it's true Stalin did this, and Stalin did that, and Stalin did this and that. But there's the cause. And the cause supersedes, it negates the little facts. When you believe in that cause, facts are trivial. They're not stubborn things. They're trivial things. And so for people like Sheryl Sandberg, even if the facts are not true, it's still true because the cause is true.